All right, we're live. This is Peter Brusso for the 101 Small Business Mastermind podcast number 39. Yay. And we have Dick today. Say good morning, Dick.
Good morning, Dick.
And we have a guest, Pamela Clift, as in
Hi.
Cliff Notes. Say good morning. Okay, good. All right, so Frank is still trying to get on, so we'll see if he joins us on the show or not. And I'm sure that Phil is tied up with his son. So we'll just have to carry the ball and do our best. All right, next week we're going to be dark because I get to have surgery the day before, and
Is he done?
Peter, you froze up. Peter? It looks as though we had some technical difficulties. No, he's back now. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you froze up, so I was just trying to fill in. You froze up again.
Froze up again. Bad internet weather.
Yeah, well, that's dangerous.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Here you go.
Well,
Okay,
it may be just the two of us.
Philosophical matter of world importance. Should we
It
discuss
could be the two of us. Yeah. Well, you back, Peter?
Yep.
He comes and he goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm back. Go ahead.
No, why don't you start? We heard nothing of what you said. We heard the beginning
Really?
about. Well, we heard was that you we dark next week because you're having surgery. After that, you froze up and.
Okay, and all I was saying was, Frank's not on with us right now. He's going to get on the show. We're going to try. So
Right.
why don't you take the B block or the A block here?
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit. Frank has mentioned Apple a lot and the admiration of Steve Jobs and everything. Well, the gentleman that took his place, Tim Cook, I think Frank talked about this last week. They've hit the $700 billion net worth of the corporation. It's the biggest in the world. And in reading the article, he said a couple things I thought would be good for any businessman, big or small. And he talked about Jobs, how the difference between him and Jobs is really stark. But he paid homage to Jobs, and he said who pushed Apple to make only the best products. We're not focused on the numbers. We're focused on the things that produce the numbers. And I hadn't heard that in a while, and it's something that I always tried to live by when I was in corporate America. That the numbers are the results of the actions you take, and if you don't have the numbers, you have to look at what you're doing. You have to look at what's worked and what hasn't worked. I talked to somebody we knew earlier in the week that his business, he's starting to not get quotes and stuff like that. And I think it's important that they'll say you don't rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. Make sure you're not doing that. Because you're not solving the problem. To find out why you're having issues with your business, you have to go back to your day-to-day activities, analyze them, see what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And I believe then you'll start doing the right things for your business. If you just focus on the numbers and the numbers, that being your sales numbers, your commission check, or anything that you get rewarded for doing the job, that is a report card. That's not what you should be looking at. Look at what do I have to do to get to the next level. I'm a Legal Shield associate, and I look at what do I have to do to sign more people up as members? How do I attract more associates? And whatever comes from that is my reward for doing it right or wrong. So I just wanted to bring that out because I thought it was something to talk about. And the last thing he says, Cook says, yes, he said, Steve ingrained in us that putting limits on your thinking is never good. And I think that is really something. And I think, Peter, with my relationship with you over the last couple of years, you've shown me that. I think I have put limits on myself in my thinking of what I could do or can't do or how I could go about it. But I think you can't. I've begun to realize that we all have limitless potential. And it's those who stretch that imagination and stretch their goals that that really are the successful ones. Do they hit 100% of what they wanted to do? No. But if they hit 80%, they probably did more than they would have done if they just said, well, here's my medium type of focus I want to do. And I think, Peter, you and I have, over the years, we've had a lot of different discussions on what we could do, what we do, and sometimes we've had arguments about them and all. But I think you've pushed me to not limit my potential and not limit what I can do. So I think just a quick summary is don't focus on the numbers, and don't focus on the results. Focus on what you're doing to get them. And if you're doing the right thing, you're going to get the results, which will get you your commission checks, or your business will grow. And don't put a limit on your abilities or your thought process or where you should go. I think if you really stretch what you think are your limits, go another 15% over what you think you can do, you're going to be a lot more successful. So that's kind of my brief little, I guess you could call A block, and that's
okay.
it.
Well, interesting, because yesterday was, as you well know, my day to contemplate the meaning of the world, with this Poway group. And one of the things I told them was, Anton Simpson, my lifelong business partner, ouch, knock it off, Pam, mute yourself there. Okay, so my lifelong friend and partner, business partner, Anton Simpson, here, I shall do it.
I muted myself.
No, you didn't. No, but at any rate, so Anton, I guess we're not going to talk about Anton.
What's happening when I do that?
You're making all this racket with your hand. I think you're actually
it's coming through
coming through there. Yeah.
Okay, let me fix that.
No, you don't have to fix anything at the moment. I'm going to talk here. So, Anton and I, we always had a statement that said, basically, I always did anyway, if we're all thinking the same, nobody's thinking.
Right.
And Dick, there's something to be said about that. And so I said, hey guys, let's start with a fresh canvas. What would we build? What would it look like if we couldn't build what we have? Let's just absolutely say that we don't know how, we can't use any part of it. What would you do? And so I called Anton yesterday even, and he has an NDA with us, and so the SD anyway. So at any rate, we talked and talked and talked and talked, put our feet up and talked and talked and pondered, and unfortunately Anton came to the same conclusion I did. I guess that's good, might be bad, don't know. So that was where I had to get these guys to go towards that, which is basically reset, reload, and we're going to have two people meet, two groups of individuals that will meet. They don't know of each other, that we're going to romance the stone with two people. So, but we had to stop, and I had to stop and try to get them to think out of the box, and we get ingrained to thinking inside the box. And I think, and that's fine for most of the time, but like the gentleman you're talking about is a general contractor. Nice kid, and he's not getting the business, but he's also not. How would you say it, Dick? I mean, you were there.
Well, I think what he isn't doing is marketing himself and building his story and why he should get the contract, or why he should get it, and maybe why the potential client should pay a little bit more for him. And I think that's what we talked about at our meeting that morning was, build your story and come in with a professional brochure, and and also kind of see what the customer wants. Don't even quote prices. Don't talk percentages until you've spent an hour doing that. Then you have a better shot of getting what you want, because the perceived value to the customer is going to be there.
Right. I think part of your story is your dream and understanding what the client really wants, know. And it's also, like I always said, when I consult with businesses, I always ask the CEO, why do they pay you money? and you've heard this story before, but for the sake of repeat, they'll say, oh, because I have a PhD, or I did this, or I did that. And it has none of that is true. The reason that people pay you money is because you add value in their life, and when you stop adding value in their life, they're going to stop paying you money. That's at the bottom line, folks. So now what is it that your company does that adds value in your customer's life? And if you can identify that and accelerate that, the rest takes care of itself, right? You get the A in the class because you study the material. But
that's right.
Yeah, and now,
if your client perceives value, they'll pay for it. If they
absolutely
don't value, they won't pay for it. And going back to your other comments, Peter, I think also when you're in doing things in a position to do things, you should never do them out of fear. We should do them out of strength, and sometimes you have to walk away from something, and that's not bad, because if it wasn't right, you shouldn't do it. But I think you have to come in with a vision of what you want to accomplish, and go for it. And when you're talking to other companies, you have to convince them or show them what your vision is, and you can't just say, "Oh, I'll take your vision." Then you're floundering. So I think you have to come in with confidence, and I think that comes from preparation, knowing what your story is, sitting down with a person, finding out what their needs are, and then going forward. So.
Yeah, I mentioned that too to the Poway group, that I believe that they're negotiating in a weak position, and that of course, as you can imagine, developed quite the conversation. But I mean, in the sake of our friend, construction guy, I think you also not only have to be confident about what your skills are, what you can offer, but if you can find out what your client's dreams are and then dovetail yourself into that and let them know that your requirements are these kinds of things as well, and make them mesh, you will do business. If you don't, you won't do business. So, and also that's
absolutely true.
You went to a big speed networking thing, and what happened, Dick? You forgot.
Well, I don't have my surfboard with me here. I should have had one, but I've shown him in previous podcasts a surfboard that Peter developed and I use as my business card. And Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce had a networking event Tuesday, and I packed the surfboards all up, and being I have a 75-year-old memory, I walked out of the house without them. So I get down to the restaurant, and I go to get my bag out of the car, and it's not there. So I stood there for about 30 seconds. I said, "Now I have a decision to make. Do I go in there without him, or do I just go back home?" And I said, "No, I'll go in." And so I went in, and luckily Legal Shield had come out with a phone app, and I used that as my business card. I had some of the normal business cards, and to people that were interested, I gave them out. But I just talked, from the app, that I don't want to give a commercial here, but I said, as a member of Legal Shield, I have my lawyer on my smartphone. I have access to him 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, for less than $1 a day. And you had to do your pitch in less than 30 seconds. So Frank's 27-second rule came in big time. I got a lot of interest out of it. But the bad part was I wasn't able to leave them with something. But I've got a couple people that I've contacted that were interested. But so Peter now has sent me the surfboard, and I'm going to embed it in my phone, so I'll always have it. But
yeah. So. And then I said, "Gee, here's my QR code, right?
Right.
We got to get it tattooed on our arm."
Yeah.
We might start a whole trend, Yeah. Hopefully you don't forget to pay your website address too, because that would mean, tattoo removal. Yeah. But in the spirit of improvising, adapting, and overcoming, I loved what you did.
Yeah. But I have to say, Peter, yesterday afternoon, I'm sitting on my computer some work, and I see my phone text goes off, and look over, and Peter sent me a text saying we should tattoo our QR codes on our arm. So I said, "Oh, what's he up to now?" And I said, "Okay." And we had a long discussion on it. But there's Frank. But I make this point. I make this point only because what I talked about earlier, don't limit yourself. That's an example of Peter pushing my limits further. I would never have thought. But it's a joke, but it may not be a joke.
It may not. Well,
it's a thought. It was great.
Some people, I mean, just imagine that. If you've forgotten everything else, now Frank, you just joined us, so you didn't see this, and you'll enjoy this, Frank. This is my QR code, right, for InfoCard, and so Dick forgot his materials on a speed thing. I said, why don't we have this tattooed on our arm? Have your QR code tattooed on your arm. You'll always have your material unless you get your arm lopped off.
But then I come up with the idea, those ones that the kids have, they stick the tattoo in their arm and it lasts for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That should be a business.
Yeah, we could do that.
Stick down your QR codes.
I can't imagine even coming close to doing anything like that. That is amazing.
Isn't that something, Frank?
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Wow.
Frank, by the way, Frank, thanks for getting on the show. Our guest is Pam. Pamela, meet Frank. Frank, meet Pamela there.
Hello, Pamela.
Frank, you want to get your lower third up and going?
Yeah. I'm trying to book it as we speak here.
Okay, and then you want to do a twin, or we're going to launch into our guest?
Well, whatever. I'm prepared to do whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, let's do a quick twin. Is yours quick as usual?
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
I don't have my sound effect because it's been a bad morning. But
Okay.
if you're ready for the twin,
Yeah, I can hear it in the distance, the sound of ticker tapes and stuff coming in, and here's Frank with his twin. Go for it, Frank.
hey, today's twin. This week in the news. Business lessons taking from the headlines of news here. Hold on, my computer's still acting up here. Okay, this week's twin is, hey, Stevie, Larry, and Howie. Thank you for the 3 small business lessons. Now, before I tell you about Stevie, Larry, and Howie, I'm gonna talk about every small business owner's biggest challenge. And their biggest challenge is to change their customers' behavior. Matter of fact, it is the highest achievement any small business owner can make. The ability to change your customer's behavior is the one ability that pays off the most. In fact, it is the very definition of market leadership. If you can change how your prospects and customers think and do things, you can rule your industry. Okay. Now, why did I bring this up? Because Stevie, Larry, and Howie did just that. Let me tell you about Stevie. Stevie did this 4 different times. The first time was in 1984. He changed how people interacted with a computer from a command-line operating system, with the little doohickeys, to a graphical one that used icons and a mouse. In 2001, he transformed how people bought and listened to music with the iPod and iTunes. In 2007, he transformed how people communicated and retrieved information with the iPhone. And in 2010, he introduced a new product type that nobody thought they wanted, and now that millions of people have, it's called the iPad. Stevie obviously is Steve Jobs. Let's talk about Larry. Larry also changed user behavior by introducing a term, hey, let's Google that. But his biggest change was not Google in behavior, it was how advertising is done today, with the invention of AdSense, AdWords, DoubleClick, and YouTube. And they are still changing people's behavior with introduction of something we're using right now called Google+. But the most impressive one of all was Howie. Howie accomplished the most difficult change of the culture by selling a commodity that everybody was already using every day. Instead of drinking a fast, convenient cup of coffee, today millions of people drive out of their way and stand in line to buy a $4 customized coffee drink of their choice. Now, obviously, we're talking about Steve Jobs, Larry Page, and Howard Schultz. I hope everyone in this podcast can become one of those. But we can become a Steve, a Howie, or a Larry in our own community, in our own industry, in our own niche. But all three of these visionaries, these stalwarts, these legends, they accomplished their customer change behavior by using the same three-step approach. And it's the same three-step approach that every small business owner can use today. Number one, all three of these guys started from scratch. Instead of trying to simply build a better mousetrap, these three men said, let me step outside of my industry to reconsider the entire problem. And they asked themselves these two questions. What is the ideal situation for the people regarding this problem? And how can I create that situation? Steve wanted to have a computer in everybody's home. Well, so did Bill Gates, but Steve took it a step further. Larry wanted to change the advertising industry. And Howie says, you know what, people want a lot more than just a cup of coffee. Okay, so they started from scratch. Number two, and this is, again, we've been talking about this for months and for podcasts on our show here. All three of these guys focused on the experience. It was not about their product. It was about the experience of using their product. People felt something when they interacted with their products, a glow of satisfaction, a glow of happiness, whatever it is. We have to concentrate and create that same feeling when people pay $19.95 for Legal Shield, when people buy the book, and I can't wait to hear from Pamela about virgins, and when people, maybe I misspoke, Pam. I'm sorry. I apologize. I did. But we can. It's not about your product. It's about how people feel and experience when they use your product or read your book. And finally, the last one, step number 3. All three of these guys went against the grain, and they looked within. Instead of trying to understand what other people want, they said, hey, what do I want? Ask yourself this question. What is the frustration that you are feeling in using the product or service in your industry, and create the product or service that you would like to have. Create the products and services that you want. Start from scratch, focus on experience. What would you like to see? If it's not there, create it and make it. And people, those are my 3 small business lessons for today, and that is this week's twin. Thank you.
All right, let me weigh in on that.
Sure.
No, in a positive way. You know, when Starbucks was getting underway, that was about the time Anthony and I invented the vending machine, the cartridge-driven vending machine, coupled with these guys that were in the coffee service business in LA, and they are constantly running around, you know, getting accounts, and of course, and snacks became an issue, and you know, that kind of stuff, and thus the genesis of a different type of revolutionizing of a vending industry. Anyway, Frank was his name as well, and Frank told me the story that here you had to imagine he's in LA, he's got this big business running around having contracts for companies to supply their coffee at, you know, 10 cents a cup, 8 cents a cup, you know, and another guy would come in and they'll go 7 cents a cup, so they were warring on each other for these little small, well, they're big accounts, mind you, and he said when he heard about Starbucks, he said, who in their right mind would pay $2 for a cup of coffee? That's crazy thinking. And in fact, look what happened. You know, it wasn't the economics, it was the experience. And I mean, all 3 of us just had coffee 2 weeks ago together at Starbucks, right? It was the experience that you watch people that gravitate towards a coffee house like that. So, you know, and that falls back to what you were saying earlier too, Dick. Don't follow the economics, right? Good. You know, follow the dream. So that's very apropos.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that before we go to the next segment? Nope.
No, I can't argue with it today, Frank. Sorry.
Well, I
agree.
can't believe Dick and Jane are quiet today. You know, where's my contrast? We're in black and white.
I will diss him about the virgin thing here in a minute.
Okay, fine. We'll get some contrast from Pamela. That's good.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, so let me open up. Everybody knows that knows me anyway that I'm a big time Second Life guy. And I really do like to build, Pam, regardless of what your book says. And I really do like to go there and relax. Okay. But one of the things is when you start Second Life, and both Frank and Dick have been over on the island, and followed the facts that I record stuff for movies and walking sims, and they're pretty cool. It does take you back to see, if you've never been there before, that's the name of the book, how to, well, it's just not SL, mind you, but there's an etiquette. There are certain ways of doing things and certain ways of not doing things, and of course, if you're a newbie, in other words, a new person, you don't know those things. And so how do you learn those things? Unfortunately, there's no one but Pam to teach that to you, but, you know, you learn by push and grind, shove, whatever, experience. Which is always the worst teacher. It always gives you the test before the lesson plan. I like to say that. Excuse me. And so anyway, I bought her book. And there it is. Let's see if I can get it up there. The Virgin's Handbook on Virtual Relationships. And I'm going, I only know one virgin in my life, so I don't know how many copies of the book we sold, but there it is. So the fun part about this is that Pam's expertise clearly goes into the digital social media world, and if I was your marketing guy, I would have told you we got to do something different with the name, because it implies just a dating thing, and it isn't, you know. So with that, let's kick it over to you, Pam. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peter, so much, and it's nice to meet you, Frank and Robert.
Robert? Dick.
Richard, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Dick and Jane.
Dick and Jane. Okay, when I wrote that book, it wasn't necessarily for dating. It was the fact that no matter how much I tried to make the virtual environment into a business or educational component, the things that always usurp progress is interpersonal communication. And since this is such a new environment with social media, and that includes Facebook and Twitter and no one knows. This is the first generation that has had that kind of computer interface blockage between you and understanding. So everybody is kind of just playing it by ear. Is this the truth? You know, they used to say if it's on TV, it's true. And now it's on the internet, and everybody says, well, it's on the internet. And now everything has gotten so out of hand, now nobody knows if anybody believes anything anymore. So what I did with this book was try to assist with both the interpersonal relationships, and for a small business, it's extremely good to realize that there is 3 types of engagement levels. There is disassociative, meaning they're on your website or on your Facebook page or teasing you like crazy or telling you that your product sucks, all because they are disassociative, not necessarily had anything or ever touched your product. But they are using that medium to entertain themselves. If they get a response from you, then they have succeeded and they get kudos. Your air quotes, Frank. And
yeah, Frank.
Yeah.
There.
I know.
Coming to get you, Frank.
I know, the air quotes.
Yeah, okay, so they are out to get you. That's a disassociative level, when you're only engaged at a level to make you entertained. That's a disassociative. Immersive is somebody who is actually engaged with your product, likes to hear from you, and likes to be validated by you. And so if you're not validating your customers, then they're not going to be immersive. So let me give you an example. Go to high school. maybe not high school. Let's go to the Moose Lodge. Okay, you go to the Moose Lodge, and when you first go into the Moose Lodge, you see all these grown men with these funny hats on, making those funny sounds and talking like here, and you're putting your hand over your mouth as you laugh at why are these grown men acting like this? And so you're very disassociative, and if you attend a couple of times, it's mostly because it entertains you to watch or engage at that particular level. Then after a while, after you start learning it, and you realize, wait a second, that's my doctor over there. And isn't he my boss? Okay, now you think maybe there's something really awesome about this culture. And then you become immersive. And you end up being the one that always does the Sunday luncheons. You end up handing out all the pamphlets because you wish to be validated by the culture that you have esteemed of worth. So you have the immersives who need to be validated before you're going to hook them. And you have to find a way to do that. And then there's the augmentative. After so long time on the Moose Lodge, you finally realize that, wait a second, why am I always doing the Sunday luncheon, and why do I have to do all the things? Where's everybody else doing it? Maybe I'm being used, and I'm going to now pick and choose consciously the level of engagement. I like to do this on this meeting, and I will do that on that meeting. No more, and I will stay a member because I like my doctor and I like my boss, and this is good connection. But I'm not immersive. Whatever the culture says, I take it or leave it at that particular level. So this is what I've decided to do with the book, is try to explain people how to recognize if someone is disassociative, immersive, or augmentative, and only mirror back that level of engagement so they don't get hurt, because we're having teenagers commit suicide because somebody told them they were ugly or that they'll never have a boyfriend or whatever is going on, because they are immersed in that feedback. And our older people, us included, and the professors and business people kept telling our young kids not to paying attention to it because it's not real, right? And so what I'm trying to say is that as a philosopher, I'm known as the roadside philosopher, reality is wherever you focus. We do not live for reality. We live for our fantasies, and we create that story. As you said in your last podcast, Frank, it's the stories that move us. So now instead of writing a self-help book, I'm working on a trilogy to help realize that we all have value. We just have to understand where people come from.
Yeah, and if you're a student of Frank, you realize that I'm the prize, Frank. That's my reality, Frank. That's my fantasy.
You are the prize.
I am the prize, Frank.
Right.
There you go, Frank. I am the prize.
Cool.
So, okay.
Would you like me to show the YouTube video?
Yes, the people, and let's hopefully we can get back from that too, because people who have never been in Second Life don't know what it is. So why don't you try playing a YouTube video?
Okay, let me explain what this is. This is actually part of my business, and what happened is NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety, and a professor at Florida University wanted a more experiential educational experience for teenagers entering into the workforce. So I created within the virtual world Cafe Bumbles, and so that people could go in and you can have an actual role play of how it is with your boss, why you don't enter this in here, what you're to look for when you enter. And so this is a little long, so you tell me if I need to stop. It's like 10 minutes. So
yeah, it's too long. We need 2 minutes worth.
Okay, so I'm just going
to... That's four levels of consciousness for Frank.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I'm going to see if I can get that started. Let's see. Okay, YouTube. Okay, now I can't do it. Okay, add. Can you see it?
No, we can't see it. Well, go ahead and shut it off because we can't see it. Darn it. There you go. It's off now. And you may be muted. I don't know.
I can go like this.
No, you got it. We're back. Okay, so well, unfortunately, we can't show that. We tried a number of ways, but I'll give a link to some in the show notes to some of the videos for people to stop and go take a look at that. People do business in Second Life, and one of the things that I think are important is that unlike if you ever do regular social media that doesn't have an avatar, you're stopped and you can only text about things. And of course, there's a whole etiquette for texting, and we all know we've written bad emails or emails that get misunderstood. But there was one woman that I knew, unfortunately she died, who had her entire business and employees in a building in Second Life at their desks. And you can get up and walk around and knock on the doors, have a cup of coffee with them, just like in real life. And it made a huge difference in her business to have all these people from all over the place who she hired. She paid to be there. And so you can build an entire business and run your business, which actually wasn't in Second Life. It was her RL business that she was running, but she used Second Life as a platform to pull everybody together. Pretty cool.
That's what I do. That's what I do with Agile. Agile and Scrum is a project management methodology for software development, and one of their components says that you have to be co-located. That's an absolute, so that you can have a cup of coffee and you can talk and you can, shoot rubber bands with the guy next to you, so that you can feel the camaraderie of the teamwork. And so what I've done is I worked with a lot of companies, with a lot of instructors about actually creating a co-location within a virtual environment where you feel the proximity with an avatar. And so that if everybody's working, like you said, on the same desk, they can walk over and they can talk to the person next to them. And if you need somebody's expertise from Israel and you need someone's expertise in Canada and China, India and whatever, you all meet in one location. No one's using airplane, no one's using carbon emissions and everything, and everybody is talking and having a bonding. There's a bonding that occurs in that medium. So it's a very useful tool for getting engaged with people. I mean, when I run the Roadside Philosophers, you sit next to somebody, you know that this is the person sitting next to me. Here we're not next to each other. You're over there, you're over there, you're over there, and I don't know where you are. So it's doesn't give you that feeling of proximity that the virtual world does. The reason why I think I'm already beginning to be outdated is because now we have what we call augmented reality in glasses and in different types of interfaces. Now I actually see where you could actually touch your arm and actually see a screen. They not really tattoos, but they actually light up and you can glow on your arm and it has an interface. Students are cheating because they can see the answers and the teachers don't know, because there's all sorts of methods of communication that's going out there, and we are augmenting our reality and with holograms, and there's going to be holograms in the future. So.
Oh yeah, well that's technology. That's where it's headed. The other thing that, for example, in business with Nike, is Nike's in Second Life. And what's really cool with Nike about doing business in Second Life is that you can go to their place and get you don't have to buy shoes. You can make your shoe that you want your avatar to wear, and that's all market research that Nike does. And so they don't have to build it and hope it sells. They take the best of breed from this population in Second Life and build it, and other people like it too. So that's pretty cool. And the car industry is doing the same thing. You can drive their new models. They ask and talk to you about what do you like about it, what don't you like about it. Really, really cool. And part of the other part is podcasting inside of Second Life. NPR does a Friday's podcast live in Second Life, and so they have somebody running the avatar for the main guy or the guest, and you sit in this arena with everybody looking, and you can raise your hand, and they'll take questions from Second Life live on NPR. But what it comes down to, which is where we want to go next, I think, is avatars. How the ethics, the typing, the levels. You can dance, you can voice, you can do all that kind of stuff, but you have to be careful. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Because because of the difficulties that we have in entering any kind of new environment, observation is usually number one. Observation, try to figure out what the culture is beforehand. People can be anything they want in the avatar. The guy is really a gal. The gal is really a guy. That blue wolf you're dancing with, you don't know. It's.
They might not know either.
I know when they're
confused.
Yeah, in Second Life, a lot of people use that medium to psychologically understand themselves. They will try different personas on purpose to see how people relate to them. I had a friend who I met at a dance club in Second Life who actually was in a wheelchair. And I said, why are you in a wheelchair when you could be anything you want, from a little bitty ant to Optimus Prime Transformer? And yet you selected to go to a dance club while in a wheelchair. And he said, yes, I know. I said, that's interesting for me. Why? He says, well, 3 months ago, I lost both my legs, and I'm in a wheelchair, and I haven't left the house since. And he says, I thought if I came here, I could see how people respond to me. And lo and behold, he was energized and had courage enough to leave his house.
I actually, on that same note, I was at a sim, and this guy kept running past me around this sim, which is a sim is a place in Second Life.
65 square acres.
Yes, exactly. Pixels, still all digital. And I finally asked the guy as he went past me, "Why are you running? Is there somebody chasing you? What's going on?" He goes, "I can't. I haven't ran in my entire life, and I'm in a wheelchair, and now I can run." So he runs everywhere, which is kind of cool,
No, there is an actual veterans. This is important for you. Veterans, those who have lost limbs, sim, to help bring in and socialize veterans who have lost components. Yes, I have a video on one of my things that show it, that actually shows how they can get associated with other people, and it helps you climatize to the dramatic change that you've had in your biological avatar.
Huh.
So yes, there is a lot of very interesting psychological things to examine in that avenue. But in my book, the reason why it's called Virgin's Handbook on Virtual Relationships is because people don't know that. The problem is they don't know they're virgin in the environment. This is all new to them. So yes, actually going through that and understanding that you're new and you want to understand how people perceive things, then you read that book.
Yeah, chapter 6 is the one. Let's see if I can get it in here in front.
The state of being. Right,
yeah,
engagement levels.
Yeah, those are their engagement levels. Kind of interesting. Frank, we might want to. I'll pass the book around a bit, but that might be interesting to see how that might work in business.
It does. I was thinking. Go ahead, Frank.
No, I guess I have a couple of questions. Peter introduced me to Second Life, and I got my avatar, and we went around his island, and I was impressed. I mean, that was a lot of work. What is the demographic of people on Second Life? Like I know Facebook, it's older, Instagram is younger, Pinterest is I consider to be grandmas, and I may be wrong, and that type of thing, and Twitter and so forth. What is the demographic of people on Second Life?
There is another one called IMVU that more of the teenagers go to, and it's less immersive, I think, but people fall into immersion anywhere. But in Second Life, it is older people who stay in. The newer ones come in, I would say, mostly we're in the 30-ish and above, mostly. But we do get younger ones in. I just hang around areas where, you naturally, it's kind of like you actually pick your level of engagement, and that usually wraps around music. So if you go to the music and you're listening to Frank Sinatra, that kind of automatically puts you in a group that almost everybody who likes Frank Sinatra is going to be in this age group. Or if you go to the rock and roll band and you're listening to this, that kind of already stratifies you. So music stratifies you. The things you go to stratifies you. I go work with a lot of educators, and so that becomes their little clique, and then there's business people, and that has their little clique, and we all we end up accidentally just stratifying ourselves. But it's, in my particular experience, they're mostly older. The younger ones don't have the patience to learn the environment, and so they want something fast.
Right, right.
I'm looking at some stats right now. Let me get back over here. There are 28,290 grid regions. Let me see. I was just trying to get a...
If you took 28,000 times 65 acres each, you can see this is a relatively large locale.
Right. And updated. Yeah. So anyway, there's a bunch of interesting stuff on that. But you know what's interesting about... let me see if I can share my screen so we can see that together here. Obviously, it comes from Second Life as well. We'll do this. See if I can share my screen. Everybody let me know when you see my screen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. Something working.
Daniel Voyager, I think I know him.
Is that right? Well, I just did a search on statistics, but you can, and he's talking total regions here, small growth in private regions, but you can see some of the curves here. This one's kind of hard to see, but it's the main grid total regions. You see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting from that standpoint. But I was trying to find the demographics, but I think in some cases what I was going to say was the fact that a lot of the places are role-playing, Frank. There's worlds for role-playing, and Flickr. So I'll stop sharing now. There's nothing worth that. But the role-playing ones introduce gamers. They have people that will gravitate towards gore, for example, to fight, and you see a lot of people fighting in gaming. Get my camera to work right here. And hello, camera. Well, I'm all blurred out. We're having a great technical day, aren't we?
That is bad
yeah.
weather.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and so Frank, you can have. I like to build. There are builder places. I get hired to go build islands. That's a business. People pay you to do that. So it's for me. I find some young ones, and I find some old ones, and a whole bunch in between. And I think the demographics are more women than they are all guys. You had that in your book too, didn't you?
It started off on the internet being geeks and pervs.
Yeah.
And it was all guys. And when I first came on, because I started at the very beginning of the internet, having a female name is not what you do when you go online. So I start right there from the beginning on how that focus seems to, no matter how wonderfully intelligent and brilliant someone is, interpersonal relationships still seem to provide the top level of entertainment.
And 1 year in SL is like 10 years in real life, or something to that effect. The speed of things, right?
It is.
The speed of things. Another thing that I found, Second Life actually had its first millionaire here 4 years ago, maybe. Female, exactly. She
house
sold
one of her Sims, yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she became a virtual, real millionaire out of Second Life. Yeah. Frank,
I have questions.
Yes, I can see
I mean, it's my mind is
swirling around as usual.
Yeah, I know, and I can't control it. I just hop on for the ride. By the way, Pamela, thank you. You have opened my eyes to in the 20 minutes that I've known you into potential for Second Life in business that I never even considered. I can, with Camtasia or some other Snagit or something, videotape my experience on Second Life. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Can I produce or create an MP4 or a video file out of Second Life automatically through Second Life?
Yes. In fact, I have movies. I have movies and things that I'll share with you
Okay.
later.
Because where I'm going with this
Mhm.
is, you know how I feel about stories, and I can talk about
Exactly.
stories, and I can
Yeah.
write stories, and I can create little mini cartoons, which aren't very efficient. But I envision Second Life as being a production studio.
And
Well,
we
I
have
could.
a whole it's called Machinima. Machinima Online is videos taken with artificial environments. Some of them actually use World of Warcraft and then put the stories in and overdub the sound effects. So that, I mean, I have several videos online, and they have stories or their purposes or their contests for machinimas or video creativity. So it's an amazing venue in a number of different ways.
Wow. Okay. So I know I can. And I have created my own avatar, and I can move it and do all the things and have my voice. Can I create and control other avatars, like in a classroom setting? Could I have people listening to me talk, and then have them either with a pop-up? I'd love to have their voice, but if not, maybe a bubble that says, "Here's what they're asking me for a question," like a teaching environment.
Yes,
Well, you
we have.
could after you film it, yeah.
No, you actually can take videos of other people talking, and you can, and I have some that I will show you, that actually you're talking to I lecture to people. I facilitate a international philosopher group. And so, yes, you can video it and have people talking. They also will text in a block over the side that asks you questions if they don't wish to use their mic. Because if they're a guy and they're having a female
Right.
avatar, they don't want to be known. So they type over here, and you can see the questions roll through, and you can respond to them in voice. And that's usually how I facilitate most of my meetings.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is that me doing it by myself and simulating what I think people would ask me in a classroom, and then I could have students sitting in a classroom and have a speech bubble appear above one of the students, and I wouldn't mind typing in the question and then let my avatar speak the answer and have an interactive conversation. I could do that.
If you have a desire to recreate that kind of an engagement, I guarantee you give me 5 minutes, I will get some of my philosophers to come and take the place and act your position.
Yeah, but the answer to that, Frank, is that you will have to use something like Camtasia
Okay.
in post-production. Yeah, I can get my camera to work
No,
out.
you don't have to use Camtasia.
Well, I
Camtasia
think-
costs money.
Oh, Pamela,
Yeah,
I love you more than I did 2 minutes ago. that was a great statement. Why?
Well-
How can I avoid spending the money for Camtasia?
I will give you some insights here when we talk afterwards. I'll show you exactly what I use.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd be interested in seeing that. I think if I understand where Frank wants to go, I don't think you can create that live. You can create the people, you can do the talk, but having bubbles pop up for questions, unless you stage it all.
There used to be bubbles. I haven't looked in a long time, and I know one used them, but they used to have bubbles that you had over people's head when they typed.
Yeah, but he wants to control what the content in that bubble.
Then you rehearse like any good video taker does.
Right.
Right, and I say again, Frank, have them sit there, do your lecture, and do it in post-processing and be done with it.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
that's
Okay.
the fastest that I know of. But let's see what we've got.
Yeah.
You know, my experience there is certainly different than Pam's, and vice versa. So,
Because
but where are you going with that, Frank?
Because I thought, and please forgive my naivete, because I was closed-minded. I was closed-minded. The term was. I thought it was a place where people go and lived out their fantasies. Okay, and you could be this, you could be that, and you could be the opposite sex. You could be a sleazebag. You could be a diplomat. It could be anything that you never could be in real life, and that's fine. But that's not my thing. Right? That's not me.
You're doing the very same thing in real life. This is just a trial rehearsal.
Now I can
Yes.
have my own Pixar being an exaggeration, my own studio where I can create stories,
Mm-hmm.
mini movies, episodes
Right.
that are which are a lot better than I could do any place else.
Absolutely.
With the outstanding production capability of Second Life.
Yes, exactly.
That is an amazing marketing tool.
You can
You
make
know,
any
it's the
cartoon you want to.
next shiny thing, Frank.
I love shiny things.
And I have
Yeah.
all the connections for the machinima people that you need that will help
Thank you.
train you. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're coming up. Dick, do you have any questions at all? You've been quiet.
Well, just listen. I just trying to, I'm Pamela. I'm in the network marketing world, and I was just trying to think to myself, could network marketing businesses work within Second Life?
It's a social media component. I met Peter in Second Life,
Yeah.
and I've met Grady Booch, who is the chief professor at IBM. I've met a lot of professors. There are lectures where I actually attend and get to talk to the lecturer from NASA. There's the Canadian border guards are trained in Second Life. Nuclear submarine emergency preparedness was done in Second Life. All sorts of things, because when you get the feeling of immersion, you know that Peter is going to panic if he sees a leak, or you know that and you're going to have to compensate for this because Joe's going to be doing this if he hears that siren bleep or the lights go off, and you know what the other person's triggers are, and you actually can form a bonding team, because once you become immersed in the environment, you're going to react exactly like that. If you have acrophobia and you see a spider, you're going to have the same problem.
Well, one of the things we do in Legal Shield, but at all network marketing, they have what they call PBR, where you invite people into your home and you present the Legal Shield opportunity to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could see where you were. If I was on there and knew people, I could send out an invitation,
Right.
and people will come, and I could present Legal Shield. But can I take that out of Second Life? I mean, you know what I mean? As far as
out of Second Life.
well, I put it in Second Life, but I live in the real world of business. I can't do the business within the Second Life world. I would need to talk to them outside of. I need them to sign up outside.
Well, actually, that's not true either. You can pass notes to them, which they can print out and sign them.
You can click on links and give them links to your website. You can tell them your phone number, your email. Everything can be traded off at the level of engagement you wish to have engaged.
Yeah.
Dick, one thing that does come to mind, when you were going to those Wednesday night Legal Shield meetings,
Yeah.
you could create that in Second Life, get everybody to get an avatar and come on.
Yeah.
And do the same thing, so.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Any other comments, questions, anything, Frank?
Yeah, so we could be having, for example, if I put together a mastermind group of 10 high pay group that I would put together, I could meet them in a Second Life room.
Yes.
And no matter where they were around the world,
correct.
They could participate live.
Yes.
But again, my question is, could I record that and save it for people who could not attend that live session?
Yes.
They could see Jane asking this question and Dick and these type of thing, and get the interaction, because it's the interaction. The positives of any mastermind group is what people say after the first answer is made. It's to say, well, have you thought about this? And that it just explodes.
I know, and that's what's really neat about this, because not only do you have the voice communication, you have the type communication that doesn't interrupt your presentation,
Right.
but you have a record of it, and you can respond and stop and talk and address it immediately, or you can hold on to it and say, I will address it at the end of X, Y minutes worth of presentation. And then you have the I am factor, which means Frank, I really need to talk to just you. I don't want everybody else to hear my idea. So I'm going to personally type to you in a personal I am and say, when you're done with your lecture, I have something I want to show you. Da-da. So you have all that can be going on at the same time that you're doing your presentation. Multiple avenues.
Yeah, for an ADD guy, you must be getting pretty excited about now, I'd say.
Yeah, I am. You know that. Yeah, I am. I know.
I would be cruder, but we're live, so. Yes, the excitement. Well, good. Okay. Anything else on that before we close off? No. No. Okay. Say goodnight, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Frank? Yeah, there you go. And good night, Pamela. So hang on whilst I stop this.